Good evening. Welcome to the tip-off social tonight. Tonight's social is a little bit different than years past. I'm Coach Diener, and we've got another great event scheduled for you here tonight. Again, it's going to be a unique night because it's different than the past. This is our third year of the tip-off social, and I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great. We have two of our seniors with us tonight, and we hopefully have a lot of fans, parents, and alum joining us tonight. Again, we thank you very much for your support. We thank you for joining and learning about the program tonight. A special thanks to the alums. This is our 100th year of basketball here at Rockhurst, and their continued engagement has just been really a thrill for me in my 5 years here, getting to know the players, getting to know the history of the program. And I think these tip-off socials these past 3 years have helped us all, my assistant coaches, myself, and our players get more and more familiar with the people in the program and what the program's been through and the accomplishments of the program. I'd like to definitely thank our sponsor tonight. It's his second year in a row. The John J. Sullivan Charitable Foundation is our sponsor tonight for the event. And again, to be able to have the commitment we have from the community and the alums has just been outstanding. And the individuals joining the tip-off club and also the sponsorship has been outstanding. As I said, this is our 100th year of basketball here at Rockhurst, and I think we have a special team. We have 90% of our points, rebounds, and assists coming back from last year. We lost one senior last year. His name was Walt Eckelkamp, a shooter, a tough kid, and that was playing. And Under Wilson was also hurt last year. So we have a lot of points back, a lot of experience coming back, some really high character guys coming back. We open up. I know there's been a lot in limbo with our season. We open up on November 27th at Southern Indiana, which is going to be a tough game. They're always a really well-coached team and a great program. Our preseason's been different than most. It's been very flexible. We've had guys that are sick at times that we quarantine. For the most part, we've stayed pretty healthy from the coronavirus. With that said, the preseasons look different. I think we're getting a lot accomplished in different ways. Now that we're into October, we're seeing things become a little more familiar as far as our practices and how often we're going, especially starting next week. So we do have a longer time in between our games. Our first game, I should say, being not till November 27th, but we're trying to keep the guys fresh. And again, I've emailed a lot of you or kept you in the loop on different things with through our tip-off emails. We are really putting a lot of time into getting better passing offensively and spending a lot of drill work, a lot of 5-on-5 and charting things of that nature. And we're seeing improvement on the film that we watch. So that's been very fun to watch us get better. We have 6 new freshmen actually joining the team as well. So we got 90% of our scoring, rebounding, assists back and 6 new freshmen. So we have a lot of talented guys in the gym now, a lot of great chemistry going on, and it's going to be a really, really fun year. As I mentioned when we opened, this is our third tip-off social, and we've had some great guests. Jerry Reynolds was great last year with Mike Garrett, and now this year with Joe Lunardi. Just really high-level guys and people that know a lot about sports. On top of that, we have, again, back Al Wallace, who was helping us last year, local guy, MC. I thought he did a terrific job. He's chomping at the bit to help us this year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Al, and he's going to take us through the next segment.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate that intro. I want everybody to know that we had all agreed, everybody on the panel, our special guest, we had all agreed that we wouldn't wear a tie tonight. So Coach Diener has decided to one-up us all, and he has dressed for a dinner on the plaza, while the rest of us have dressed for dinner at Whataburger at best. So, Coach, you've already scored the first point of the night. I want to thank everybody, all the folks at Rockhurst, for the invitation and allowing me to be involved once again in this event this year. And when I say everybody, I do mean everyone, including Reverend Thomas Curran, the president of Rockhurst University, the athletic director, Gary Burns, associate AD, Michael Kohler, and Brent Blazak, the director of alumni and parent relations. All of those folks, and of course, the Rockhurst University basketball program, all the players, all the coaches, and especially head coach Drew Diener. I'm going to connect with them a little bit later in the program, and we'll talk some X's and O's and some hoops. But first, well, here we are, just about ready for tip-off of another college basketball season number 100 for the Rockhurst Hawks, and what is sure to be a season like none other in the history of this program. And I say that because, think about it, a year ago, we were all gathered at Mason Halpin, the field house, and we had a blast, but we were all face-to-face. The season tipped off in fine fashion. Everything came along to a grinding halt, though, in that month of March, the first couple of weeks, and everything stopped. Almost everything. Almost. When you are set to play the game of basketball, and you've done so for 99 years, think about that, 99 years. It's 9 decades and 9 more years. And you're on the doorstep of season number 100, like the Hawks are. Not even a global pandemic can get in your way. What you do, folks, is you find a way. You find a way to regroup. You find a way to prepare. You find a way to work. You find a way to find some chemistry. You dig deep, even in the off season. You do what you got to do to prepare for the upcoming season. You find a way to gather the team, gather the fan base. You do all those special things that you want to do to make a college basketball season that very special season, playing that very special game that we all know that college basketball is. And here we are, college basketball season number 100 for the Hawks of Rockhurst University. Now, no matter the consequences, you do, folks, you find a way. And that's why we are here tonight. We're here to celebrate Rockhurst basketball before they tip off this 2021 season. And we want to help the Hawks get this special centennial season started in a very special and dignified way, with a lot of support, plenty of support, and a whole lot of talk about what we can expect this upcoming season for Rockhurst basketball and from the Hawks as they look ahead to a very challenging season in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Now, here's a quick preview of what we got coming ahead for you here tonight. We've already heard a little bit from Coach Diener. A bit later, we'll have him back along with a couple of players, 2 strong leaders from this year's squad. And we also want to hear from you, the Rockhurst basketball fan, the follower, the alumni base. We want to hear from you. So you're going to be able to join, ask questions, not only of the players and the coach, but also from our special guest, who I will introduce here in just a second. I may be one of the few people here with you tonight that can remember back in what we like to call, when you're old and gray like I am, you remember back in the good old days where the NCAA Division I tournament was made up of a field of just 16 teams. Think about it, 16 teams in the NCAA's Division I basketball tournament. That was changed back in 1975. And as you've guessed, I'm a big follower of history. I love history, and I especially love sports history. 1975, the field of 16 upgraded itself to 32 teams. And then 10 years later, in 1985, whammo, it went all the way to 64 teams. But even then, 64 teams in the NCAA bracket. Well, what'd you say, bracket? What the heck is that? Well, that bracket has had an impact on the game of college basketball on all levels, Division I, Division II, Division III. But who would have known that it would have the profound effects on the game and the following that it has? I think it's safe to say that very few have, from a spectator's or a fan's point of view, have had more of an impact on the game. Not a coach, he's not a player, but he is tonight's special guest. He is Joe Lunardi, and he has impacted the game, the way we follow the game, like no one else. the way we all get involved with the NCAA tournament, especially the way we enjoy the tournament and the way we are connected to the tournament. He's become such an expert in a way that he can predict the field of the NCAA Division I tournament. He's the first to be given the title of a bracketologist, and he's helped invent a new science, which is bracketology. Ladies and gentlemen, Hawk Nation, let me introduce, it is my pleasure to introduce the one, the only, Joey Brackets, Joe Lunardi. Joe, hello, good evening, and welcome to Kansas City and Rockhurst basketball.
Al, thank you. And it's great for me, and it always feels good to say happy hoops to a group of Hawks fans, because some of you may know I grew up at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. We're the Hawks as well, a fellow Jesuit institution, and the Hawk will never die has been a mantra for me and my family. I'm the third of three brothers who were Hawks at St. Joe's. And I look back, I pulled it up this afternoon. It was back in April that I got an email from Father Curran, who I actually knew previously. He was the president of a high school out here in Wilmington, Delaware, which is only about 40 minutes from where I am, and also did some weekend work at my parish. So I knew Tom Curran, and then he was on the board of trustees, still is on the board of trustees at St. Joe's in Philly. I was a VP there for a number of years before booting myself upstairs to the bracket bunker, where I now reside on a more permanent basis. But I was thrilled to be asked. I wish I was there in person in Kansas City, so I could have congratulated all of you on doing something that we couldn't in Philadelphia, and that was, of course, winning a Super Bowl with Andy Reid. So we're grateful for him, and that he brought you a Super Bowl title, just as the Eagles brought us our first a couple of years before that. I might have mentioned, and this is purely hypothetical, and I'm sure we don't have anybody participating who's old enough to remember, but 40 years ago last night, when I was a junior at St. Joe's, the Phillies did win the World Series over the Royals, and I may have been at the game, but I wasn't able to find the ticket stub today. I was going to put it on the Zoom call, but then I thought maybe my internet would kick out and you guys would get rid of me. But I'm happy to talk about Hawks of any feather, if you will, and congratulate Coach Diener and everyone at Rockhurst on reaching 100 years. I feel like I've been a bracketologist for 100 years. It's really only been about 20 or 25. And if you think it's one of those fantasy jobs that everyone would want to have, most people would probably say, it's harder than it looks. Well, it may be harder than it looks, but it is a fantasy job. And I am blessed beyond measure to have it. And we'll be happy later in the program to take your questions about it or college basketball in general and whatever kind of season that we're going to have, Lord willing. But I think full disclosure, when Al said I'm not a player or a coach, that's for good reason. I'm 5'5" on a good day. I can't go to my left at all. And my one foray into coaching, our oldest daughter's CYO team in the 7th grade, I did manage to lead the girls to a perfect season. We were 0-15. And the 16th game was snowed out, thank goodness, which prevented us from posting the worst record in the history of St. Bernadette's CYO. It's much easier to talk about the game than to play it or to coach it. And the fact that I get paid to talk about the game is probably something that my parents looking down from above. My dad always said I had a face for radio, and my mother was gone long before all this TV stuff happened. But I guarantee she would say, I can't believe they're paying him to talk. his father and I would pay him twice as much if he would just shut up. So I think my opening minutes are up, Al, and we're going to do a little Q&A, I think. But
Yes.
this is my first official basketball event of the season. So I promise I will come back and speak at the banquet when Rockhurst brings home the league championship.
Joe, thank you for those words. I want to remind everyone who's joined us here that you will be able to pose your question to Joe Lunardi and to Coach and to the players through the Q&A feature that you find here on the Zoom call. So if you've got a question for anyone on the panel, minus myself, because I'm not a bracketologist, I'm not a player, I'm not a coach, I'm just kind of helping. I'm the traffic cop here tonight, okay? So I just kind of want to help along those lines. And I'm going to start with a couple of questions for Joe, and then we're going to bring in Coach and the players, and then we'll just be one big happy Hawk family here as we talk college basketball, and then a little bit later, more specifically, of course, Rockhurst University basketball. So my first question, Joe, when did you first start to, what was the genesis of your ability to select teams in the bracket and become so quote unquote good at it, if I can put it that way?
Well, I appreciate any adjective like that. A lot of people don't know that I was the star center on my high school team. And
At 5'5".
that was, of course, my introduction to basketball. All kidding aside, I was a print reporter in college. And when you're in Philadelphia, that means the Philadelphia Big Five: Temple, Villanova, LaSalle, St. Joe's, Penn. So, as a college kid, I kind of majored in college basketball without knowing it, because growing up with the Big Five and the Palestra, I kind of, learned at the foot of some really great coaches, Jimmy Lynam and Rolly Massimino and John Chaney. Of course, Jack Ramsey, part of the Hall of Fame coaching tree at St. Joseph's. And when you're around people like that, and it's a great sports media town as well, if you're one of those people who's kind of addicted to press row and the media room, as I'm sure you are, Al, you're getting an advanced degree in basketball, even though you don't know it. And long before the internet and long before ESPN, I was just fascinated with how the NCAA tournament was put together. And in Philadelphia, generally speaking, in a given year, at least, a couple or three of the teams were good enough to make the tournament, even in its more days of a smaller field, and advanced. Every school in the Big Five has been to at least one Final Four. And during my time of covering it, Temple went to 5 Elite Eights, and St. Joe's went to an Elite Eight when I was a student, and then again, of course, in 2004 when they were number one with Phil Martelli and Jameer Nelson. So, I just fell in love with the tournament, and I would sketch out brackets literally on legal pads in my kitchen table, and the confluence of loving the tournament and loving the brackets, kind of coincided with the development of the internet. I always joke Al Gore was nice enough to invent the internet so guys like me could come along and get a career out of it. But I was working for, and the Hoop Junkies out there will remember the Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook. I was an editor and eventually the owner of that publication through the late 80s and mid 90s, now celebrating its 40th anniversary. Was able to go another 20 years without me, which probably proves what, lack of business acumen I brought to it. But to make a long story a little less long, we added a postseason edition in 1995, and that required kind of guessing in advance what teams would be in the field so that we could produce the book on time on Selection Sunday night and ship it out by that magical noon Thursday start to the tournament, which we all remember getting the sniffles for at our various jobs and schools over the years. And the guessing of the field for that book led to projections, which led to those projections being co-promoted by a new sports website called ESPN.com. And over time, the projections became more popular than the book. And I devoted my energies to that. And every year it's grown a little bit more. And here we are. To say I had a business plan that it would happen, or that one day there would be something called Joey brackets or a bracket bunker. Well, I'm not that smart. And it's more the passion of the fans, like the people on this call, because let's face it, unlike pro sports, where there's X number of cities that have pro franchises, well, almost everybody has a college in town or near town. And almost everybody, whether it was themselves or their dad or their brother or sister or Uncle Frank, has a squad that they root for. And it's that passion for the school and for the sport, and the fact that it really only takes one or two great players and you can have a great season in college basketball. So it's one of the most inclusive things that there is. Race doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter, politics doesn't matter. Like 5 guys on a court and a ball and a hoop, and the poetry and motion of it makes it great. And I think that passion has allowed people like me to go along for the ride, and I'm just grateful for that.
I got to tell you, Joe, one of the reasons that your bracket on ESPN, one reason it is so popular is because you don't look at blue Democrat or red Republican or race or religion. It's like you have this innate ability, and you're not the only one, but you have this ability to stick to the facts. And I guess my question is, and this is part of what we're getting on the Q&A part here as folks have logged on, is what type of dynamic do you use to just stick to the facts? Because more often than not, there's 64, 68 teams in the tournament, and you're hitting on 63 or 67, or you don't necessarily go with placing them in a certain region or such, but you are able to get the bracket right. You're already able to get just this 98 percentile of teams that make that big bracket. You get them right. So what's your foundation? What's the deal?
Well, I learned a long time ago to kind of check my ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I joke to people, like sometimes it's just math. Like this year, there are 357 Division I playing men's basketball schools. 68 of them, in a normal season, non-pandemic season, make the tournament. That means at any given point in time, about 280 are going to hate my guts. And there isn't anything I can do to change that. and look, it's a lot easier now than it was 20 years ago to feel confident. Like I know that my system works, and I'm comfortable in my analysis and certainly my internalization of the principles and procedures of bracket making. I'm not suggesting that it's a healthy thing for 4 months every night to go to bed with a seed list of teams 1 to 68 after that night's results end. But the fact of the matter is, from the very first night of the season this year, November 25th, until Selection Sunday on March 14th, hoping we get there, I will go to bed every night with an updated seed list based on that night's results and updated accordingly. And there's a certain diligence and even routine to that, that kind of desensitizes you to rooting for people or rooting for teams. But I'm human too. I have players that I really like and coaches that I'm really friendly with. but as we get into January and February and certainly into early March, where accuracy becomes paramount, I find that the less I pay attention to what the outside world is saying about who's in and who's out, the better off that I am. And the bunker, while not a literal bunker, once I get there for the last 3 or 4 days before Selection Sunday, I'm just locked in the way, I don't know, a lawyer would be on trial, or an accountant during tax season.
Right.
And again, I'm not suggesting that this is like something that is important in the grand scheme of humanity. But it's what I do now, and I think I owe the fans my best effort and my most objective view of the teams, and that's the approach. Now, then once the tournament starts, then I root for, then I go back to the heart.
Joe, you say it's what you do. I'll add that you do it very well. More from Joe Lunardi here in just a second, but I want to make sure we get the rest of the panel in. So right now, I'm going to ask head coach Drew Diener and Curtis Lewis and also Chris Hamill. I want you guys to unmute and let us see your bright and shiny faces. And as we talk some Rockhurst basketball as well, welcome, gentlemen. And now that we can see you, look at Curtis. He's got a smile on his face. He's ready to jump ball. I'll start with you, Coach. You mentioned the season as you're still more than a month away from tip-off. So if you could tell us what you and the team have been going through here. We know about a lot about the last 8 or 9 months because we've all been going through it. But tell us from a basketball standpoint, what have the last 2 months been like since, the guys got back on campus, got into class, and then a month or so later, you were able to get them out on the court and start workouts? Got to unmute there for us, Coach. There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, it was different. Typically, our guys come back and we have a mile run that they have to make every year. And because of the lack of training, in theory, for these guys in the off season, the NCAA was mandating that we not put time tests upon their arrival back to campus. So I know they're all just really upset that wasn't able to play out. So we had to get creative in what we're doing. A lot less conditioning this year, honestly, than we have in the past. And initially, that first month of the season, we were doing a lot of stuff, splitting the guys up and keeping guys separate. And then after a few weeks, I'm meeting with different players, freshmen and upperclassmen, and I'm kind of hearing the freshmen saying they really don't know the upperclassmen that well because there's not to be much mingling on campus, and in practice they're kept separate. And talking to the coaching staff, we thought, hey, we got to get these guys together because we really need to build some chemistry on the floor, and it'd be nice if they all know who each other are. So,
Coach, you mentioned building chemistry and the challenge of all that with the social distancing and everything. Has that been a bigger challenge than maybe you thought? And how are you guys progressing with all of that? Keeping away from each other, but then away in so many ways, basketball-wise, you want to get together.
That's right. Yeah, it has been a challenge. And again, that first month of the season, we're keeping them away from each other a lot. And now we've been blessed not to have any positive tests. I mean, I've talked to other coaches in the league that have had shutdowns for 2 weeks, and that's always in the back of my mind is, wow, we're a day away from having a shutdown with our program. So while we are still healthy, we got to start making hay while the sun shines and get these guys playing together and working together. So each school has been handling it totally differently as I talk to different coaches. And I'd say in the discussions I've had, we've had a pretty good run of luck and been able to work with our guys a good amount. I'm pretty happy with what we've been able to get done here in the last 2 months.
We've got a couple of your guys with us here tonight, Curtis Lewis, Chris Hamill. I'm going to ask both of you guys right off the top of the bat to unmute your mics, if you will, so you don't have to, mess with that if we get a question or two. And I'm going to ask you from the same question I just asked Coach. how challenging has it been to be on this to be a basketball player on this team, knowing you have to be careful, knowing you have to kind of, stay away, but then again, you want to get together because you guys want to make some progress. You want to be ready for that tip-off come that first game come late November. You've still got some time, but how have things been going?
I think things have been going as best as they can be. Like Coach said, we've been blessed to not have any positive cases so far. But at the same time, we've been trying to follow all the guidelines, all the rules. And I believe for the first, like you said, month, 2 months, we've been split up into 2 different groups. And our first official practice was Monday, and that was probably the 3rd or 4th time that we've all been together in the same gym, which has been a blessing because we still haven't had any cases. But it's been tough. But at the same time, we've just had to have a positive mindset and get through it. And so we've worked ways around it, trying to figure out the best way to still progress as a team while working through this virus.
Chris, my next question is for you. As you guys work through some of these different dynamics that you've never had to work through to start a college basketball season, I heard Coach say that he's got 90% of his offense back this year. That's got to be a positive, something that you and hope you can build upon. It's got to be a positive heading into the season. So how much are you looking forward to having so many familiar faces back to get this season underway?
I think we have a lot of good veterans on this team. We know what to expect. We know what feeling feels like. We know what winning feels like. We also have a feel for our competition. We know what the postseason feels like. And for us as a team, I believe we all want more of that. We have a great group of freshmen that are coming in and I feel like they will make a big impact to our team as well. And the freshmen also complement us, and I feel like they'll be a key piece to our program. But just, us being much older and much wiser and knowing what to expect, I think that would be much better than last year.
Again, we want to open up the floor to questions to come from our viewing audience. So if you've got a question, you can enter it in the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen here on this Zoom call as we get ready to tip off 100 years of college basketball at Rockhurst University. The Hawks, they've been on the practice court. They've been practicing for about a week now. We're still a month away from their first game. But before you know it, that late November contest will hit. So there's not a lot of time to fix a lot of things because this is such a different dynamic of a basketball season that we're going to see. I'm going to pose this next question to our special guest tonight, Joe Lunardi, and this is in reference to the Division I tournament. And one of the changes we've seen over the years, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, Joe, and the question comes from Spencer in our audience. He's a fan, and he wants to know how did the first 4 come to be? And how has that impacted what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it touches on a bunch of little kind of trivialities and frankly political considerations within NCAA Division I. So you'll remember in 2001, I believe, we went and added 1 game in Dayton between
one play-in,
and Team 65, which to the casual fan made no sense at all, right?
Yeah.
Like you almost seem like, those were the 2 schools on the naughty list and they got sent to the closet in the back of the classroom and they had to, write a punishment out. But what happened that year was the old Western Athletic Conference had grown to 16 teams.
The WAC.
Correct. It split in half to form the Mountain West, which then required an extra automatic bid in the field because the new Mountain West had a continuity of membership and it met the criteria for an automatic bid and it had X number of schools above the minimum. They had 8, the WAC had 8. So both schools needed a bid. So instead of just taking away an at-large spot, which would have hurt who? Probably one of the teams in the power conferences right? Like some team from the middle of the Big 12 or the middle of the Big 10, right? They couldn't take their spot away without, getting the big boys cranky. So they sent like Fairleigh Dickinson and Niagara to Dayton. And we did that for a while up until 2011 when the current deal with CBS and Turner came to be, and the NCAA, and not a lot of people know this, the NCAA funds everything it does pretty much from the men's basketball championship.
95%, almost 95% of their operating budget.
Like Division III water polo happens because of the tournament. And that negotiation was big for them at the time. They had a number they wanted to hit in terms of rights fees. And in order to do that, they were willing to expand in 2011 to 96 teams. And they had modeled it. And the model was going to be the first weekend as we know it would have gone Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to get all those extra games in. And it was actually the network partners, CBS and Turner, that said, no. That waters down the field too much. And they were content. They were able to hit the NCAA's rights fee number in 2011 by simply expanding that Dayton round to those few extra games and making it half and half at larges, in other words, the bottom of the bubble, and half of the 16 seeds. Actually, 4 of the 16 seeds, and that's now the format that we have. But I remember saying at the time and being convinced that it was that expansion that was going to cause a 16 to finally beat a 1, because if you think about it, now 2 of the 6 16 seeds are teams that used to be 15s. And 15s have won, a half dozen times over the years.
Alarming.
It just turns out that University of Virginia was the first victim, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County was a 16 seed that didn't go to Dayton to the first 4, which meant in a field of 64, they would have been a 15. So I'm not right about a lot of things, but we were right about that one. And that's how the first 4 happened.
Lo and behold, huh?
Yeah.
Next question's for Coach Diener, and this comes from Charles Dunlap. Coach, 56 years ago, we're talking history, 100 years, and Joe's taking us through some of the history of the NCAA tournament, but 56 years ago, the Hawks of Rockhurst University won a national championship. Wouldn't it be great to bring a national championship back to Kansas City and make a deep run in the tournament? I'm not trying to put a lot of bricks on the mule that you are, Coach, but do you guys think about things like that? Because one of the best things about any basketball tournament has to be the fact that anything is possible. And if you don't believe me, Joe Lunardi, just, the whole Maryland, Baltimore County, you've got to know that anything is possible, Coach.
Yeah, for sure. And we see that banner up there, and I've gotten to know a lot of those 1964 guys. So those guys are definitely an inspiration. That's the ultimate goal for our program, is to win a national championship. We're making gradual success. I would love to make a big jump more than anybody. And these 2 guys on here probably feel the exact same way. I know it starts with high character guys, hardworking competitors. I know we got that part down. We got to continue to get better at playing well together offensively and defensively, just really guarding. And then you need things to go your way, and a lot of that you can create on your own. But it's great to hear from Chuck Dunlap, because he's a winner, and he's a guy who I've met. He came up to a Marquette game when we played up there. So it's just not, again, it's great to have that engagement from those alums.
My question, this next one's for both either Chris or Curtis, and I'll ask you to unmute as this question is coming from Cameron Phillips. I apologize. This question is coming from Andrew Elwanger, and he says, Well, his question is, will fans be allowed at the Rockhurst games? Guys, from what I understand, you guys are not there yet, Curtis, allowing fans to games. But you've seen the NBA bubble with no fans and maybe some piped-in noise, and we've seen some NFL games with no fans. We've seen Major League Baseball games with no fans. Curtis, you think you guys are ready for that, or is this going to be like a really good scrimmage? Are you ready for that? Have you thought about that?
Yes, but at the same time, I think one thing we tell ourselves all the time is that honestly, we can play in front of thousands of fans or zero fans. And I mean, we love the support, but at the end of the day, we're going to compete and give it our all, whether or not people are going to be there in the stands. We would love to have fans. Trust me, we do. It'll be fun to have them, but if they're not, we're still going to be ready to compete and go out there and win a game that we're scheduled to play.
Chris, this next question is for you. How ready are you guys to actually play basketball, to play against somebody else? Because last year was cut so short.
I say that I feel like we're very ready to play against someone. I just asked Coach earlier, about our schedule and who we would face up first. It's just about our ability, our willing to compete. And so I feel like I'm very ready to compete and go out and get out there and play. I know our season was cut short last year, everyone's season, and I know with everything that's going on right now, it's kind of we're just unsure about what's going on. But I feel like I want to get out there and play and compete because I love the game of basketball.
Coach, this next question comes from Paula Moss. She wants to know, what have you had to do differently from a recruiting standpoint?
Yeah, this summer was totally different. A lot of the events were off, and the NCAA wasn't allowing us to go out and watch really anything. So there's some film stuff you could do, and really it's just connecting with those coaches that you have built relationship with, and just to hear who they like, what's going on, and just so you're just so used to connecting with people that you just keep those conversations happening. And but you're allowed to see a lot less. You can stream some stuff, but that's not always apples to apples that way.
I think, Coach, this next question is maybe a bit of a fun question. It comes from Philip Bennett, who wants to know who wins a 3-point shooting contest between Drew Diener and Travis Diener.
Well, in 2007, my brother had a Taco Bell Crohn's and Colitis Foundation event in Fond du Lac on all of our home courts. So it's very equal in that way. And I won about $200 worth of Taco Bell gift certificates. So that went about what you'd think it would go.
Taco Bell.
Yeah. I think Travis took third, actually.
I'll take it, Coach.
He was also 7 years old.
I think I mentioned the name from a fan a bit earlier, Cameron Phillips, and this is for you, Joe. How do you believe that March Madness will play out this year? Any early indications of what we can expect this coming March?
Well, I was convinced of kind of two things when this pandemic, stretched out and became months instead of days or weeks, and that was convinced of two things relative to intercollegiate athletics. One was that the SEC would play football. That if they were the only 15 football teams on earth playing, it would be them, because it means that much in those areas of the country, and it's religion, and I get that. We're all passionate about sports in different ways, but SEC football is at a level that maybe even exceeds the NFL regionally. It's a different
animal.
Yeah, the second thing I was convinced of was that there would be an NCAA tournament in 2021. I don't think any of us know whether we're going to have a 4-month season or a 4-week season. And sometimes it feels like we'll have a 4-day season. If if with postponements and mid-season quarantines, almost nothing would surprise me. You know, in Division I, and I know it trickles down to the other divisions as well, 76% of the Division I schools have no students on campus from Thanksgiving until after the new year. So they're going to try and play as many games as they can in the quote unquote golden window. You know, if things were to spike again in January because there's more people back on campus, you know, I could see a scenario where the whole thing shuts down for a month and the whole thing gets pushed back for a month or even more. And we have May Madness instead of March Madness. You know, just like they gave away the Stanley Cup in September and the NBA ended in October. And you know, the only sport that didn't get to the finish line was ours.
College basketball.
And that was more the bad luck of the timing, right? Like nobody in college basketball did anything wrong. The committee sitting in that room in New York, when they had to make a go or no go call, they did the only thing that they could. I mean, 2 weeks later, the Sweet 16 was supposed to be at Madison Square Garden, and it was kind of a medical war zone. Like Manhattan was closed. So you know, all we can do is look forward, and I expect them to be very nimble, both in terms of my little piece of it, selection and seeding, but in the larger issues of, you know, how are they going to evaluate teams? What do we do with uneven numbers of games? You know, suppose in a league, one team gets 13 games in and another one gets 16 games in. You know, I think we're just going to have to be ready for flexibility and doing the best that we can with the most competition that we're able to get in. Ultimately, I think there will be a selection Sunday. I think that they're going to do their absolute best to have a full field of 68. But if we ended up with 32 conference champions and that's it, that wouldn't surprise me. If they got rid of the automatic bids and took the 16 or 24 or 32 best teams because there were only so many venues that were deemed safe, that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think anything would surprise anyone. I mean, we just had a call the other night that was moved because the Chiefs played a game at 4:00 on a Monday afternoon. Like, this is the world that we're in. And I think the sooner we stop trying to control what's uncontrollable, the more content we're all going to be.
Coach, this next question's for you as we draw to a close here at the bottom of the hour. And it concerns your schedule, because I know your schedule, Coach Diener, is going to be extremely unique this year. And it's a two-part question to you. Can you talk a bit about the other teams in your league? And your schedule is basically all league, and I'll let you take it from there. Talk to us.
Yeah, it is all league, all 22 games. I think the best teams in the league, Drury's going to be really good. They've got a lot of guys back. I think Southern Indiana, who we open up with, is going to be a really good team. They put a lot into winning over there. They just got a new coach who was also in our league who had a lot of success. So I think those teams are going to be real good. I think UMSL, who has shared the league last year championship, Missouri St. Louis, I'd say those three teams stick out as just having a lot of guys back. I mean, I think we have more back than any of these guys. So, and we can beat any of these guys. So it's going to be a real tough league. You know, as I said, 22 games, and you play some teams twice. And as Joe just alluded to, man, we may play more teams once than we actually think. So each game is really more than any this year. You got to treat it like it could be your last, at least your last for 2 weeks.
This question to both Chris and Curtis, and I know you guys will be short as we draw closer to the end of the bottom of the hour. It says, Coach Diener's energy. This is from Adam Fatkin. Coach Diener's energy and complete dedication to the basketball brought back his love for the game in his final year playing at Rockhurst when he was really struggling with motivation. Now, this is Adam Fatkin. So to go off of that, what's the player's favorite part of playing under Drew Diener as a head coach? Curtis, you go first. Your mic's open.
So you said what's the favorite part of playing?
Yeah.
Under Coach Diener?
Yeah. Make it good because he's listening in.
I know. I mean, so this is my 4th year here. So ever since I stepped in day one, Coach has pretty much been a mentor, a leader, and has taken me in with open arms. So, I mean, it's tough. There's a lot of memories. I mean, dating back to high school when I remember one of the recruiting times he came and brought basically the whole coaching staff and I introduced him to my family, and my family basically fell in love with his family and the coaching staff.
Just so everyone knows, I'm going to interrupt real quick here, Curtis. You went to Pembroke, so you're a Kansas City guy.
Yeah, I am a Kansas City guy. Pembroke is right down the street. It's about a 5 minute drive.
Right.
So I remember they all showed up, and I was like, wow, I mean, the love from Rockhurst since day one has always been there. And I would probably say on the court, one of my favorite memories is probably my freshman year when we played Lewis University. And I think it was one game where I think I just got hot. And I think I looked over to Coach, and I was like, what play do you want to run? And he put his hands up like this. And then
do what you got to do.
Oh, and I made it. And I was all like, well, I guess that builds trust in between us because, I mean, I was a freshman and came in there, and he trusted me with whatever play call I wanted to do or whatever. Basically, if I wanted to score, if I wanted to pass, he trusted me since day one. And it's been like that since all 4 years. So, I mean, there's a lot of things on the court that even more memories that I have, but it's mainly the off the court relationship that I believe that is the best thing that I think has come from being at Rockhurst and from Coach Diener.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to ask you to unmute because now it's your turn now. Curtis is a Kansas City guy. He's a local guy. Where did you start? Where did your interest in Rockhurst start? Because you're from Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
From Evanston.
Okay. How do you go from there to Rockhurst here in Kansas City and your relationship with Coach Diener?
I would say my relationship with Coach Diener is the best relationship I've had between the player and coach. I feel like he just gives me a lot of confidence. He believes in me, which makes me believe in myself every time I step out on the court. And then, just his energy. He always has energy. I can go back to times where we've won and we go back to the locker room and we're just waiting for him to walk in, just spraying with water bottles. And he's just up, he's pumped up, he's energized. And, it just gets everyone going. I just love that part about Coach that, he always gives off positive vibes and he's just always giving off energy to everyone. And I've never seen Coach Diener like in a bad mood. Like, I've never seen him angry ever. I mean, that's just, just a good character to have. I mean, he has good character, and it's just, he always has positive vibes. So that's one thing I love about Coach.
There's that special connection that a successful basketball team has to have, that player and that coach. And that coach has to have that connection with every player because so often if there's a glitch in that chain, it can turn into one L and then another L and maybe too many L's, and an L is a loss. Joe, my final question to you is, we see so much popularity in the Division I bracket. How challenging would it be? How difficult would it be to have the other two divisions, Division II, Division III? And has there ever been any interest in having a bracket for them, for those other two divisions in college basketball?
Well, I've actually thought about that, Al, from time to time, and of course, it could be repeated on the women's side as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
ESPN does have a guy who used to work with me at Blue Ribbon doing women's bracketology, and he's terrific, Charlie Cream. I wouldn't be able to do it justice personally, because, you know, the games are taking place pretty much simultaneously. Like,
I got to think
someone
that
would
your
have-
bracket, Joe, is just such a monster to keep up with because you're keeping up with so many teams. There's just not, your calculator would blow up.
No, but like I could, you know, I could pass on some techniques
Yeah.
that could then be implemented by you know, whomever had that level of interest. And it wouldn't surprise me. I thought, like, I've seen some mock brackets only because, you know, here in Philly we have Philadelphia University, used to be Philadelphia Textile, Herb McGee, a Hall of Fame coach, Division II, perennial championship contender. Like, I've seen some projections. Maybe it's not full mock brackets like we do at the D1 level. Maybe Drew or some people know what's happening, you know, a little bit down the food chain there. But I like all these sports, field hockey, soccer, baseball for sure. There are coaches and players and fans saying, can we get in? I mean, there's always an at-large cut line.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't maybe get its own bunker and its own bracketologist. And I think I'm going to declare myself closed for business on taking that off.
Joe, I'm not so sure anyone outside a very small few who have tuned in here tonight on this celebration of Rockhurst basketball as we get ready to tip off season number 100 at Rockhurst University. You and I have never met before this week. We met a couple of days ago when we kind of had a run through of tonight, but we do have something in common. The fact that I wrote a book that was co-authored by a gentleman by the name of David Smale, and now you are in the process of writing a book and having it published, I believe, due out come March or sometime shortly before that, co-authored by a gentleman who lives here in Kansas City by the name of David Smale. So with that said, if you can, in 30 or 60 seconds, tell us about the book, because I know it's got something to do with basketball and a bracket.
Sure. The book is basically the creation of this obsession that bracketology has become, and proving that you don't actually have to be able to read a book to write a book. So now that's in the public square.
You prove that. Huh?
It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that, as I'm sure yours was, and it was something that I always wanted to do, and I just really didn't have the time to devote to it until the pandemic. And I thought, okay, you know, I can't play golf every day, although I did try.
Hey, can I intervene and
yes,
take something up with Joe quick? Joe, 2005, I'm a GA at DePaul. This is something that's been bothering me for many years. I'm a GA at DePaul. My brother's a senior at DePaul. We lost to UAB, and we were not even the last four in. We were in your field. So we're home, we're watching all the tournaments play out, thinking we just got to keep off of his last four in. You eventually, when you came out with your day of thing, you never gave us the idea that we had moved even to the last four out or the last four in, and we were out altogether. And at that point, you brought up that you had that term, people hate you, all the schools that hate you. I wouldn't go there, but I really wanted your number, and I would love, if I have to buy that book, I want to know what happened in 2005. And my brother and I are convinced that you had the number from the NCAA, and that's how you get your 98%, because you were tipped off and you made no slide. So I'd like you to check your notes on that.
Well, here's what I remember about 2005.
Yeah.
I remember how great Illinois was. I remember that DePaul didn't make it. I had seen DePaul in the tournament the year before in Dayton.
Yeah.
Right. It was like a double overtime game
against Dayton. How do you remember that stuff?
Oh my gosh.
I was at the same regional with St. Joe's.
Yeah, because then
we were the ones.
West was there.
Correct. Now, having said that, I wasn't as good at this then. Like, and it was, I hadn't yet gotten to the point of not listening to other people.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, I have no one's number in the room.
Okay.
If anything, I think sometimes signals are thrown in my direction to try and throw me off the scent. Yeah, I don't remember why.
So if I asked you, if changing topic, so that was impressive, but if I asked you who made the tournament, if I asked you a team made a tournament in 2012, would you remember? Like, did Southern Methodist make the tournament in 2012? Would you know that?
Probably know that. They didn't.
Okay.
They
Wow.
didn't. Because
You use certain markers. Joe, do you use certain markers to help you remember not just the season, but the bracket, especially the bottom end of that bracket and all those double-digit seeds that barely got in or were on the bubble and got left out?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to remember anything about that DePaul team. I think maybe there was a little bit of fine print in the selection procedures that year that if you had a crappy GA, you couldn't get an at-large bid. Was that maybe part of the deal?
That could have been. If I buy your book, maybe it's in there.
No, I can assure you that it's not.
No.
You're saying I had you in all along and then you disappeared?
You had us in till like 1 or 2 days before. We went from in sturdy. The next time you put your projected bracket on the morning of, and we were out. You did not give us any inclination. We were in Lincoln Park throwing a fit.
Wow. I don't remember that even 1%.
Okay, well,
It must be. It must just be such a tragic thing that I've blocked it out, and you've not been able to let it go. Who is the head coach?
Lato.
Yeah, the first time.
Yeah.
It's funny because I ended up in an establishment with him once. He was on a recruiting trip, and we just ran across each other 3 or 4 years ago, and he didn't bring it up at all.
Yeah. Well, you know, GAs are always on the, yeah.
We talked about the 04 team, but the only thing he said about the 05 team was that his staff stunk. So, like, I don't know what to say. But now you're going to make me look it up.
Yes.
All right, we'll catch up offline.
Okay.
What you have done here, Joe, and you've helped coach, is helped us realize that each season, each team, each bracket, and each tournament is so distinctively different, and that's what makes a lot of what makes college basketball so special.
And I would add to that, Al.
Yeah.
Every level, like.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would never put Curtis or Chris in a box, and good coaches don't, and say, well, they can only be this good or do this much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we've all been around teams that have done remarkable things. That's the beauty of sports. That's why we watch.
I continue to wonder why in college basketball it seems like that is more possible than any other sport.
I know the answer to that. And it's that, well, because one guy can do it. Like if Jameer Nelson had been 6'3" instead of 5'10", he never comes to St. Joe's. He goes to the ACC or the Big East, and that never happens, right? It never happens. If in 1980 at Lake Placid, if Jim Craig, like, doesn't play like, I don't know, Ken Dryden for 2 weeks,
Superman,
USA finishes last. Like, but that's the beauty of sport. Like, you know, in football, it's harder. There's 22 guys on the field right now. It's pretty good if one of them's Mahomes, right? You're going to have a leg up on the other guys. But you know, like look at Dayton last year with Obi Toppin, or San Diego State with Malachi Flint. Like, one guy, Larry Bird in 79, for those of us who go back that far. You know, Indiana State hasn't been heard from since. here and there. Because one can make such a big difference is why basketball has a high variance, is what the statisticians would say.
And this from Gina, one of her, she didn't really have a question, she just had a comment. So much of what you two guys, and certainly you, Joe, have been talking about here in the last minute or so is it's so possible for every team. It is so possible to have that one shining moment. And that's what makes it so cool, makes it so neat.
And that's why we're still sad about last year at the D1 level. Like, it's not Duke or Kansas or Kentucky. And I'm sure we have KU fans, and I don't want to, but I mean, they go every year, right? Like, a bad year for them is to lose in the Sweet 16. But for a Dayton or a San Diego State or a player or a program that hasn't been, like, to the extent that I root for them. I root for the Rockhursts, right? Because, I mean, that's why we follow. If the Yankees won all the time, it would be boring. At least to me, and I think a lot of casual fans feel that way.
I think it's so.
The outcome, we wouldn't watch the game.
It is so special. The month of March, to me, up and down across the board, to so many teams, hundreds of teams across the country, different levels, JUCO, NAIA, NCAA, men, women. The month of March is so special. I think it's just the most special month of sports that we have, and I am so much looking forward to it this year, guys. I think we're done here as far as my participation goes. I want to thank Joe Lunardi, Curtis, Chris, and Coach Diener. Coach, I'm going to let you close us out. I've had a blast tonight. I can't wait till we're through all of this mess. And next October, we're again face to face, person to person, and we're inside on campus and able to tip off season number 101. We're absolutely positively looking forward to season number 100.
And before Coach answers,
yes, sir.
I'll come in person. I still owe you one. I'll come if you'll have me. Just understand, I looked up Mike Garrett. Between us, we have 27,000 career rushing yards, and he has all of them.
Thank you, Joe Lunardi. It's been fun.
Well, I want to thank Joe and Al again for helping out this year. Father Curran for his relationship with Joe kind of got us in the door. A great guest to have. I think the reason we started this tip-off club 3 years ago was a big part of it was just to build that sense of community within the program, whether it's guys who played for me or guys who played way before me. And I think we've done that. I get a lot of joy out of hearing from or seeing alums on the road, St. Louis, or even if I'm on personal vacations, meeting up with guys. I just really enjoy linking together with people that care about our program. And that's been one of the most enjoyable things for me. I think one of the highlights of the Tip-Off Club for me was our first year when we had Jerry Reynolds there and Fisher and Bill OC there, and they're all there, and three coaches, they all knew each other, and all the players that were back. I mean, that was probably one of the highlights of my career here, as far as being able to build a program that everyone can really be proud of and celebrate together. You know, I grew up in a town, 35,000. My dad was a high school coach, and that's where it get it from. When your community just support, there's such a strong sense of community. When you're growing up, you looked up to those guys, and I know we can't duplicate that. It's a totally different level, but love seeing the names come up, Adam Fatkin and just different guys, and their engagement is big. I know I can say it again. We got some really, really hardworking guys. Yesterday we had a practice was very difficult. I think an enjoyable part for coaching for me is guys can be pushed to their brink, and then today they can come in the office and you can have a conversation with them. You know, there's guys looking at me like yesterday, like they wanted to take me out. And when they show up, when Charlie Haney showed up in the office today, I think it made my day, because I love that he can make the separation and that it's all about the relationships and trying to get each other better. So Brent is going to have the links up. I appreciate everyone who's been in the Tip-Off Club and guys who've made contributions. Someone I think wrote on there, what's the next step for our program? I think that new floor we got is great. I think what we've added on campus with the MAC, that helps recruiting for us, for the whole campus. For basketball, I think if we could get a slight makeover of some of the seating and maybe sell a better Hall of Fame area in our gym. I know someone wrote on there, what's the next step? I think that would go a long way, and not only the recruiting and elevating the program, but a lot of people would feel good about walking in there and celebrating the successes we've had and the people we've had. So again, Brent's going to put up the link if you are still looking to help out the program. And then he's also got a survey he'd like if we'd fill out just to grade us on how this went off. It's our first time doing this, and I appreciate Brent for all the time he put into this. This was an awesome job by Brent. He really picked this up where I left off last year, and he just took this thing and went with it, and it was really, really made it enjoyable for me to be part of. So again, thanks everyone for that, for joining. I hope to see you at some point, but all the games are online on the GLVC network, home and away. You can get on there and watch. And Gary Gallup does a great job on there. I think he's one of the best in the league at it. Hope you can join on there and shoot me a text or email anytime you want to talk or when things open up and we can get together. But Al, thanks again. And Joe, thanks for showing up.